In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. The story of Malik Ambar is one of the most extraordinary in Islamic and Indian history. Born in Ethiopia in 1548, he began life not as a prince but as a slave, sold as a young boy, carried across seas, and taken into foreign lands. Yet through courage, intelligence, and sheer determination, he rose from bondage to become one of the most powerful leaders in India. A man who stood against mighty empires and carved a place of dignity for himself and his people. As a child, he was known by the name Chapu. He came from the Oromo people of East Africa and was taken at a young age by traders who sold him into slavery. From the Red Sea port, he was transported into the bustling markets of Arabia, and eventually, he was brought to the Deccan region of India. There, he was purchased by a nobleman, converted to Islam, and given the name Ambar. But what set him apart was not his condition, but his vision. Even in servitude, Ambar displayed brilliance in strategy, finance, and leadership. His masters recognized his potential, and instead of being confined to menial work, he was trained in administration and the art of war. Step by step, he earned freedom, gathered loyal followers, and became a leader of mercenary soldiers. The Deccan in the 16th century was a land of conflict. The great Mughal Empire sought to bring it under its control, while smaller sultanates struggled for survival. Into this storm stepped Malik Ambar. By forming alliances, training armies, and using guerrilla tactics, he frustrated Mughal generals time and again. His mastery of military strategy earned him a reputation as one of the finest commanders of his age. But Ambar was not only a warrior, he was a visionary ruler. As regent of the Ahmadnagar Sultanate, he introduced reforms in revenue collection, strengthened cities, and encouraged art and architecture. He built canals, fortified towns, and created systems that lasted long after his death. To his people, he was not an outsider, but a protector and a just leader. From slave to kingmaker, from chains to power, Malik Ambar's life is proof that dignity does not come from birth or status, but from faith, courage, and perseverance. After gaining his freedom, Ambar did not fade into obscurity. He carved a path that would make him one of the most formidable leaders in India. With sharp intelligence and unmatched determination, he built an army of loyal men, many of them African mercenaries like himself, known as Habshas. To the Deccan sultanates, often threatened by Mughal expansion, he became not just a commander but a shield. The late 16th century was a time of chaos in the Deccan. The Ahmadnagar Sultanate, where Ambar found his place, was under heavy pressure from the Mughals, who sought to expand their empire deeper into the south. But Ambar understood the terrain, the people, and the tactics of survival. He mastered the art of guerrilla warfare, using swift cavalry strikes, ambushes, and mobility to frustrate Mughal armies that relied on sheer numbers and heavy formations. The Mughal Emperor Jahangir himself came to despise Malik Ambar, calling him a black-faced wretch in his memoirs, not because Ambar was weak, but because he could never defeat him. Again and again, Malik Ambar outmaneuvered Mughal generals, reclaiming lost lands, defending fortresses, and keeping the independence of Ahmadnagar alive. His forces were so effective that even Maratha leaders, including the young Shahaji Bhonsle, father of the legendary Shivaji, served under him and learned from his methods. But Ambar's brilliance was not only on the battlefield. As regent of Ahmadnagar, he reorganized administration and reformed the land revenue system, ensuring farmers were treated more fairly and the state's income was stabilized. He invested in public works, building canals to provide water for agriculture and strengthening fortifications to defend against invasions. His leadership combined both the sword and the pen, making him a true statesman. By the early 17th century, Malik Ambar had risen from a former slave to the de facto ruler of much of the Deccan, commanding respect and loyalty from diverse groups: Africans, Indians, Muslims, Hindus, and Marathas alike. He had become a symbol of resistance against the mighty Mughal Empire, proving that destiny is not determined by birth, but by vision and courage. At the height of his power, Malik Ambar was no longer simply a former slave who had risen to command armies. He was the true ruler of the Deccan, a man whose name struck fear into the Mughal court itself. The rivalry between Malik Ambar and Emperor Jahangir became legendary. Jahangir, in his memoirs, spoke of Ambar with hatred, calling him names that revealed more frustration than disdain. For despite the immense wealth and armies of the Mughal Empire, Jahangir could not subdue this man of African origin who had once been bought and sold as property. Ambar's mastery of the land, his ability to strike suddenly and vanish, and his unmatched organization of cavalry made him one of the greatest guerrilla commanders in Indian history. His forces inflicted repeated defeats on Mughal generals. In 1610, he recaptured Ahmednagar, which had been lost to the Mughals, and established a stronghold of resistance. He rebuilt the city and made it a symbol of defiance. Time and again he reclaimed territory, harassed Mughal armies, and cut off their supplies, forcing them to retreat. But Ambar was more than a warrior. He was a ruler who understood governance. He introduced reforms in revenue collection that stabilized the economy and protected farmers from exploitation. He commissioned irrigation projects, building canals to bring water to dry lands, ensuring agriculture thrived under his watch. His administration was known for fairness, which earned him loyalty from both Muslim and Hindu subjects. One of his greatest legacies was his role as a patron of culture and architecture. He developed the city of Kurki, later renamed Aurangabad, which became a flourishing center of trade and learning. His constructions, including canals and fortifications, survived long after his death, a testament to his vision as a statesman. Despite the Mughal might, Malik Ambar remained undefeated in spirit. Jahangir commissioned paintings of himself shooting arrows at Malik Ambar's likeness, symbolic attempts at victory that never came on the battlefield. This imagery showed the depth of the emperor's frustration at being repeatedly checked by a man he considered beneath him. Malik Ambar had become more than a general. He was the protector of the Deccan. His alliances with Maratha leaders, his ability to unite diverse groups, and his vision for governance made him a rare figure. Both feared by empires and beloved by his people. In his final years, Malik Ambar stood as one of the greatest figures in the Deccan. Despite his age, his leadership remained sharp, and his people continued to look to him as their shield against the expanding Mughal Empire. Even as new challenges arose, he refused to yield. By the mid-1620s, he had built not just an army but a legacy. The city of Kurki, which he developed, had become a bustling capital, later renamed Aurangabad. His irrigation canals still flowed, his fort stood strong, and his administrative reforms kept the state stable. To the farmers, he was the one who ensured fairness in taxation. To soldiers, he was the commander who never bowed. To the people of the Deccan, he was a protector. But time eventually claimed him. In 1626, Malik Ambar passed away at the age of nearly 80. His death left a great void, for he had been the spirit of resistance against the Mughals. Without his leadership, the Ahmednagar Sultanate began to weaken, and the Mughal armies found it easier to press their advantage. Yet the memory of Malik Ambar continued to inspire those who fought for freedom in the Deccan. His legacy lived on in more than military victories. The Marathas, who would later rise under the leadership of Shivaji to become the strongest challenge to Mughal power, had learned much from Ambar's guerrilla tactics. Shivaji's own father, Shahaji Bansal, once served under Malik Ambar. carrying forward his strategies of swift cavalry raids, mobility, and deep knowledge of the terrain. Aurangabad, the city he shaped, flourished long after him, and many of his public works remained in use. His irrigation system, known as the Nehar, became a lifeline for the people. His reputation for justice and administration earned him respect not only among Muslims but also among Hindus, who remembered him as a fair ruler. To the Mughals, he was a bitter enemy. To his people, he was a hero. And to history, Malik Ambar stands as a remarkable example of resilience. A man who rose from slavery to become a kingmaker, a regent, and one of the greatest defenders of the Deccan. His story proves that true power does not come from birth, wealth, or lineage, but from vision, courage, and faith in one's cause. Malik Ambar's life reminds us that even from the depths of bondage, greatness can rise, and that justice, when combined with determination, can leave a mark on history that no empire can erase.